PC24 ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਾਲ ਚੀਮਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੂੰਗਾ, ਸੁਰੱਖਿਅਤ ਰਹੋ, ਸੇਫ ਰਹੋ। ਅੱਜ ਬਾਹਰ ਮੌਸਮ ਬੜਾ ਖਰਾਬ ਹੈ। ਮਤਲਬ ਸਨੋ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੈ ਰਹੀ, ਪਰ ਇੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਸੜਕਾਂ ਬੜੀਆਂ ਸਲਿਪਰੀਆਂ। ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਆਇਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਾਰਗੇਜ ਆਫਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਆਈ ਹੈਡ ਟੂ ਮੀਟ ਸਮਵਨ ਐਂਡ it was crazy. The traffic jada bahut zyada lined up hai, and today we have amazing people who are going to join us. If I tell you the names, you will be astounded. If you are a real estate agent, or you are a seasoned agent or brand new agent, I think this broadcast is definitely going to help you beside helping home buyers and home sellers. But before we bring those amazing people up live, I want to quickly talk about some historical event that started this day on January 18, 1919 in Paris. So on this day, some of the most powerful people or leaders in the world, they met to begin the long, complicated negotiations that would officially mark the end of the First World War. 18th January 1990, Paris, don't forget it. So leaders of victorious allied powers such as France, Great Britain, the United States, and Italy would make most of the crucial decisions in Paris over the next 6 months. While President of America, Woodrow Wilson, struggled to support the idea of peace without victory, being very lenient toward Germans and keeping it on the low note. On the other hand, the other leaders of the summit that was going to take place, they, such as Prime Minister George Clemenceau of France and David Lloyd George of Great Britain, argued that we must punish Germans. So Germans, when they were not allowed in the meeting, but when they came in, they were really disappointed because they were banking too much on President Wilson's idea, peace without victory. But they have to leave a larger share of territory, and under their article of 231, I guess 231 was the article. Let me check that up. Under that article, under Article 231, the Germany has to accept the complete onus, the fault of initiating the World War One. So this was a bitter pill for many of the Germans to swallow, but this is history. So starting a peace era, that's when the League of Nations also took off. The League of Nations, United Nations. I think this is how it is known as currently. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, but right now, let's get our guest in front of you. One is amazing person, my friend. His name is Brian Madigan. Brian Madigan is a seasoned realtor. He works with Remax West Reality, and he has conducted thousands and thousands of courses educating fellow colleagues on how to be better. He runs programs for seniors so people can provide the right service. And at the same time, Brian is also a litigation expert, expert witness. Sorry, Brian, I think I just wrongly quoted you that way. So he's an expert witness. So you can just imagine the person who is expert witness, what kind of knowledge he has. But the beauty is he has the same head size as we all have. It hasn't swollen yet. He has so much information, but he looks same, handsome, dapper, always. And I will also like to welcome one of my friend, John Selinan. He is from Ferry Sound, broker owner of a Remax office. So, Brian, welcome to Paul Cheema's PC24 RETV show, my friend. Thank you for being here. Brian, can you speak? Brian, I get your audio, but I am unable to see your. I cannot hear you. Hello, Brian. Can you say something? I think your audio is not working, but I can hear you. Maybe you have to crank up your microphones or sorry, your speakers. Something is wrong with your audio on the other side. I can hear you loud and clear. I can hear the audio coming from the background.
Now I can't hear anyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear
You
you
can hear
now.
me.
I can hear you now,
Now
Brian.
I Paul, I can't hear you. So I guess that's a little bit of a
Hello, hello, mic testing
issue.
1 2 3. Hello, hello, mic testing 1 2 3. Let me check 1 second. Give me 1 second, sir. Let me check. Hello, hello, mic testing 1 2 3. Hello, hello, mic testing 1 2 3. Hello, uh, Brian. Can you hear me now? So I will just like to speak with Brian in a few seconds. Brian, I will get back to you. Give me 1 minute. I looks like there is some technical difficulty. Please give me 1 second.
And it's at 89.
We are back again. Sorry for this technical interruption. For some reason, Brian is unable to hear me through computer, so I have him on the phone line. He can listen to my question. You can also listen to my question, and I think we can all hear him speak. So, Brian,
Yes.
welcome to the show, sir.
Well, very, very happy to be here and participate in this program.
Fantastic. Well, I just told the audience that Brian has so much knowledge, but despite that, his head is the same size as ours. It hasn't swollen. It looks the same, but I also told the audience that you are a seasoned witness as expert witness on all matters real estate, that you're working with Remax West as a broker, and that you have plenty of experience. And I also requested the realtors, if they are listening to this broadcast, to tune in, because what you're going to say is going to enrich the knowledge not only of home buyers and home sellers, but at the same time realtors too, whether they are 20 years in the industry or whether they just joined. So I would like to hear something about you from your own mouth. And John, can
Uh,
you turn camera on, please?
sure. So I'm I started off, I guess, actually with working for the CNR in the summer times. And in 1969, when I had joined the Osgood Hall program to go through to get a law degree, I spent my first summer with the CNR legal department. So the interesting thing from that perspective is we were working on the creation of the CN Tower and had to do a land severance, sever
Okay.
that off, and make that available uh, for separate disposition. Now, I guess that was my first real estate deal, and it was also the biggest. I've never done one bigger than the CN Tower ever.
Oh, wow.
Than that. So all downhill from 1969 on. In any event, I practiced law with a law firm which did litigation. And so I was not expecting really to do a lot of litigation when I joined them, but I ended up agreeing to do commercial litigation,
Mhm.
which forced me to do real estate transactions, which had fallen through. So that was that for a while. I moved into medical malpractice, which was a better business to be in if you're doing litigation for a law
Mhm.
firm. And that was in large measure a great deal of my legal career. However, we switched over in let's say, I guess, 2005 into real estate.
Mhm.
And at that point in time, the interesting aspect was, gee, I seemed to know a fair amount about what could go wrong with real estate transactions. And I was quite surprised that other people didn't, that I thought, oh, well, everybody knows this. But in actual fact, I was drawing on my own legal background from the 70s and 80s, dealing with defaulted real estate transactions. And for some reason, I thought everybody knew this. But as it turned out, neither real estate lawyers nor even litigation lawyers seemed to be that familiar with it. And so it was sort of like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I do know this. So I started to write some articles about it. And then after a while, I was retained by a number of real estate litigation firms to assist them in court. Well, of course, that was focused on the fact that some real estate agents had fallen below the standard of care. They hadn't done a proper job for their clients, and their clients were seeking compensation. The other thing, of course, is the real source of this were other real estate agents. That is, real estate agents who were their friends, real estate agents who were members of their family. And they would say, oh, something's gone wrong here, and you really need to pursue the matter of compensation. So that was something that sort of got me into doing that aspect of attending in court and testifying with respect to transgressions of real estate agents in ordinary real estate transactions. And
Mhm.
the interesting thing from that perspective is it can be brand new people, but I'm not finding that it's brand new people. I'm finding that the bulk is someone who's been in the business for maybe 20 years. And then they grow. They've got a little bit of a team. They delegate things to other people, but they don't supervise them well
Yeah.
enough. And we really have a communication problem on the team. And so the senior person, if they were left in charge of the entire file from start to finish, would do it well. But we just have a problem internally, and they miss something which is quite crucial and quite important to the acquisition of the property.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you spoke about standards of care, and that is a word which has really deep meaning within real estate transactions. So, what do you when you have like you have represented in so many cases? Even I'm wondering if you also go to professional standards, but what kind of biggest standard of care you see missing in agents?
Um, Competence. So they
Mhm.
do things that they shouldn't be doing. They haven't, and you're supposed to have one of two things:
Mhm.
education or experience. And
Yes,
so what a person is then lacking is education or experience. And so like, well, how are you just going to take this on and do this transaction when you've never done one that's similar like to this before? We
yeah,
should be looking and taking some training in it. You should be, if you're at a brokerage, you should be seeking the assistance of a colleague who's done this. Well, nobody
absolutely.
likes to part with part of the commission. They look at the commission and say, no, no, I'm going to keep it all myself. But
Yeah,
really, when a person is starting out, they should have a mentor, and they don't, and that's missing. And so their first transaction that they do in an area is on their own. And it's only when they get in trouble that they start to seek advice. Well, that's the
very
wrong
right.
time. They should be seeking advice ahead of time and bringing someone involved and sharing the commission on it on
Yeah,
one transaction and then doing 10 more on their own independently after that.
very good.
Unfortunately, that's not really happening, and people will who are experienced in the field will suddenly do a downtown Toronto condominium and not be familiar with it. Say, well, I've been in the
Absolutely right.
business for
Yeah.
20 years, but I've never done a downtown Toronto condominium. Alternatively, it's the other way around. Someone looks at the prices in cottage country and they've only done downtown Toronto condominiums. And then all of a sudden, what they say is, well, I could do cottage country here. Here's a particular property. It's worth $2.5 million, and I don't want to share the commission with anyone. Well, what they really should have is have a local expert assist you on this. Have someone who's familiar with the area, and knows the issues that face um, individuals who are dealing with cottage properties. And that's largely kind of a water in, water out. You have to know how does water get to the cottage, and in terms of sewage, how is it removed? Well, if you don't know to ask those very basic questions at the outset, you can be in very serious trouble.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Brian. And I have witnessed two transactions. Luckily, those two transactions were not for third persons, they were for the real estate agents themselves. I
Oh,
saw one just now, and they were so deep into that, they were frustrated. And I happened to know one through Toastmasters group, and he would call me every other day. He didn't see his house well. He bought the house thinking it has a basement apartment that has a potential to generate some income. But as the closing came, the seller revealed to him that this basement, the city actually sent him a notice to close the door because they said it is against the bylaws and the zoning requirement. And he said, I have to close it. And he said he didn't know what to do. And this agent was very upset. And I told him this thing. I said, listen, the problem is you are unable to separate yourself from as a realtor and as a buyer. There are two different sides to the transaction.
absolutely.
You representing yourself as an agent, but then you are also a buyer. If there was a third party involved, you would be facing a severe legal penalty on and disciplinary action by the regulator. And then the funny thing was when he went to close the deal 2 days before closing, when he revisited the property, he figured out the garage was cut, but because of the stuff lying in the garage, he couldn't see it. And there were stairs going down, there was door that has already been blocked
Oh,
by the
yes, yes.
and he didn't know that it existed before. From inside, it looked plain white. And I told him that he should ask for compensation. Lawyer was pushing, even his own lawyer was pushing him to close the transaction, but glad that he could take about $60,000 in compensation, and he was on call with me every other day. What should I do and how should I do?
Yes.
Just imagine this person representing some buyer, and the frustration for a buyer who knows nothing, who thinks that they are hiring an agent to help them walk through the entire process easily and safely. Now they have totally different experience. It's a roller coaster, and the entire industry's name gets, bad name, which is not right. So legality in these cases, I think they have severe repercussion for the agent and even for the brokerages.
Oh, very much so. And some of the things can be very, very simple and very, very easy.
Yeah.
One case I just completed, a very experienced and excellent real estate agent with 30 plus years experience and
Hmm.
running his own brokerage, and who is someone who is a colleague of mine, and I know them reasonably well,
Hmm.
and would ultimately trust them on any type of transaction. Missed a big error, and always does downtown Toronto properties, urban properties in the geographic area of Toronto and its immediate vicinity. And
Yeah.
that's it. But missed a very important situation. And that was a backyard had been severed off a property in Forest Hill,
Oh,
and there was no uh, immediate access to water or sewers.
yeah.
And the question was, would the city cooperate and agree that they would bring the sewers and water over? Yes,
Yeah.
they would. But of course, the client, who was the only person who would benefit, had to
Yeah.
pay the cost. And so, what was the cost? $800,000.
Ah, wow,
So
that's a
all of a
huge
sudden,
cost.
we have an $800,000. Um, the sewers were really up on another street, and they had to be brought over. And it was sort of like, okay, well, how could this possibly happen in an area that's totally built up like Forest Hill?
Yeah.
Well, you just have to know rural properties, and if you were dealing with rural properties all the time, the first question you would ask is water in, water out, where are the services that go
Absolutely.
with this property? If you've got a farm or whatever, that
Yeah.
would be the first question. So that's on a checklist of everybody that does rural properties. And here, for if you'd spent 35 plus years working in downtown Toronto, it would never really occur to you that there are
Hmm.
no immediately available services from the city. And it was sort of like,
Yes.
oh, just blindsided. So you can have what would be a very innocent mistake. It can be costly, and yet, I would be highly inclined to continue to recommend this particular agent. And I do know that this particular agent now would certainly seek assistance if he were ever to take on a rural property,
Well, well,
which I think he would not.
it's there are specialist properties like you mentioned. John Selinan has some problem with his mic and camera, cannot come online, but maybe he can text me. John, if you see this thing happening a lot with people with zero experience in selling cottage properties, and how many, if you can give us some number, we will be grateful to you and we can share it, me and Brian, because I know many agents from this side of the world go to sell those what is it called, cottages and waterfront properties, which may not be their bone of contention, but they still do it because sometimes it's commission, and if they're not making many money here, well, they think wherever life takes them they will go and do the transaction. But it's not easy. There could be severe complication repercussions of doing something that you are not familiar with. The code of ethics clearly says you have to be competent to provide service. If you are not competent to provide service, well, stay away from it or refer it to someone else who can do a better job than you, and you still get some remuneration paid as a referral fee. So it is so easy to do business. So thank you very much, Brian. Those are really startling revelations we are talking about here. So when buyers are buying houses in this market, you know how the things are moving. I am pretty sure you have seen market from older years, and now we are looking into this new phenomena, like where houses run faster than money can run behind them. So how do you compare the previous market? Let's say, let me take you back 10 years back and today market. What do you see? What's the difference you are noticing here?
Well, I mean, I've followed a number of different markets, and the interesting thing is that the market in 1970, 1971, 1972
Yeah.
was far more significant in terms of its rate of increase than what we have now.
Mhm.
It's just that nobody is remembering back quite that far.
Yeah, I know.
Uh, but that was a much more significant market than what we have today. And
Yeah.
in 1974, they
Yeah.
came out with the Land Speculation Tax Act in order to put a lid on it. Now, that's not even spoken about today. But as we move forward, what we have, the most significant sort of motivating factor would be the low interest rates. And so while we've commonly over the last number of years had interest rates hovering around 10% per annum for a mortgage,
Yeah.
that's dropped down significantly. And now we have competition among those who are prepared to offer mortgages.
Yeah.
And, 1%, 2% mortgages can be quite common. And so all of a sudden, that brings an awful lot of additional buyers into the marketplace. The difficulty that we have at the moment is a shortage of supply.
Hmm.
There's far too many purchasers who
Yeah.
have money based on
Yeah.
low interest rates, and they're wanting to buy something. Well, what that does is push up the bottom of the market. The bottom of the market pushes up the middle of the market. The middle of the market pushes up the top end of the market.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we have a lot of difficulties. There hasn't been, with COVID, a significant increase in the number of listings.
Hmm.
So that has not correspondingly taken place. So
Yeah.
right at this very moment, as in January, um, January 2022, we have
Yeah.
a shortage of supply, but that's throughout the entire province. It's not just here; it's everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's extremely challenging for an individual purchaser to be the one who's selected. So if we have an ordinary property,
Yeah.
not noteworthy in any particular way, but
Yeah.
a property that comes on the market at, let's say, $900,000, there's quite a number of people who can afford that. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, we're likely to face a bidding war where at least 20 people will step up to the plate and submit an offer on that particular
Yes.
property.
Yep.
And what we have at the moment is blind bidding. In other
Yeah.
words, nobody knows what anybody else offered.
Yeah.
So the result is it's worth 900. That would be the fair price. And one of those 20 people suddenly decides, well, not only am I going to, I've got to win this bidding war because I've been
Yeah.
in 10 bidding wars and I've lost them all to the
Yeah.
high bidder. So all of a sudden, I'm going to offer $1.2 million dollars. Well, then all of a sudden, that $1.2 million dollars is the new standard price for that
Absolutely.
particular property in
Yeah.
that community and so on and so forth. So the result of that is it's challenging then for the house down the street which now comes on at $1.2 million.
Yeah.
And someone else will then say, well, I just compare it to the one that just sold, and I think this is reasonable value.
Yeah.
So the entire subdivision then has gone up in price. And that's a challenge because right at the moment, there's very, very few listings. That might change over the month, but we
Yeah.
just lost 2 days with snowstorms.
Yeah.
And that takes absolutely everyone out. If they plan to do anything these last 2 days,
Yeah.
they're going to just be shoveling snow because it's the only
I
thing
know.
that can be done. Because
Yeah.
but other than snowfalls, which would interfere with the market, the spring market or the 2022, when is it all going to start again, can happen quite quickly.
Yep.
And certainly people say, well, I got to get a jump on the gun here because I don't want to wait for spring because properties will be more expensive and I won't be able to afford anything by then.
The fear is there.
So there's fear
Yeah.
on the part. Exactly. That's the key
Yeah.
word in terms of buyers. They're
Yeah.
fearful and they think if they don't buy anything now, they're going to be stuck.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of interesting statistics that you might find of note. And that is if we were to look over the last couple of years,
Yeah.
that is from 2017
Not far
to
from
now.
today. Yeah.
All
Mm-hmm.
right. And if you bought at the beginning of 2017 and you had the property, that particular property, you paid fair price, you
Yeah.
bought the property in January 2017,
Yeah.
you would have had today an 11.7% rate of return. If we
Wow.
then moved to 2018 and you had bought the property January 2018,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have an 11.99% of rate of return.
Which is still fair
Yeah.
somehow.
So
Yeah.
those are very attractive returns
Yep.
compared to other markets. 2019 would bring us up to 18.19%.
Okay.
2020, 19.03%. And then if we went to the beginning of January 2021,
Mm-hmm.
we just saw a 24.19% increase. Now,
Yes.
I've taken those numbers based on I'm not trying to average them out. I'm not
Yes.
trying to smooth it out. I'm trying to take significant time periods, namely 5 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty steady.
Yeah.
And we're looking at 11.7% over the 5-year mark.
11.7%. Okay.
Yeah. So when we're looking at Toronto Real Estate Board releasing statistics and what's the price of an average home, the average sale price for 2021, unfortunately, they mush it a little
Yeah.
bit. What they do is they take all the prices at
Yeah.
the end of each month, all 12, then they add them up and divide by 12. But what you're going to find is a stale number. That's not going
Yes.
to match because what we have is a rising market. If you were to, if you wanted to know the value of stock in RBC Bank,
Yeah.
and they said, well, let me give you the average number over the last year, you'd say,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't care less. I need to know what it traded for yesterday and what
Yeah.
it traded for this morning so that that's the number.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate that Toronto Real Estate Board doesn't use that. I mean, I'm using their own statistics in
Yeah.
that regard. So what we really have is a 24.19% increase.
Yeah.
So that's probably not sustainable. Now, the
Yeah.
interesting thing, just historically, over 1,000 years of history, is that properties increase at about 5% per annum. Now, if we
Yeah.
were to move into Toronto, GTA, we'd say it's going to be a little more than that because there's lots of interest there. And we could be looking at 6 or 7%. But that's really what should be sustainable. when
Yeah,
we're looking
some
at these. Yeah,
respectable numbers and logical numbers too. That's the right
yes.
growth. Yeah, I remember 2% when I bought my house. It was 2.5% annual increase.
Well, yeah, that's not bad at all.
I know.
Very attractive. Now we moved back to 1981, and you were about to buy a house. Instead of 2.1%, you'd be paying 21%.
Ah,
So all of a sudden, you can see what that would do to the market, and it just completely depressed the market at that particular point.
yes,
So a substantial rise in interest rates would be a factor. Certainly, one of the things is it would eliminate a vast number of people at the lower end who wouldn't be in a position to finance something,
very right.
even by just going up 1%. Because if you go from 2 to 3%, and you say, well, it's only gone up 1%, what could possibly be the big deal?
Yes,
Unfortunately, that's one third of the cost.
yeah,
So as it gets up significantly, the interest rates are not discouraging as many people.
yeah.
And a rise in increase in interest rates certainly would be effective from that
So,
perspective.
Brian, I'm going to take a little quick break here. Stay on the line because
Okay.
so I do a fun part in during this transmission. I'm going to ask some question later on, but not at the moment. But I'm going to suggest one book that I strongly recommend for people to read, and this brings a new awakening. So the book I'm going to recommend today. This is the book, and this is I find this book one of the most phenomenal book to read about. It's a very big book, but when you read it, you will leave empowered, and you will not be susceptible to many triggers even if you are buying a house, because it is trigger that makes you pay way more money than you should do. So read this book called Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert B. Cialdini. He's a PhD, and he went undercover to learn the behavior of not-for-profit organizations, for politicians, for many other companies, and then he came back and compiled a huge book, Theory, The Psychology of Persuasion, and this is how the title looks like. It's not that glamorous title, isn't it? But the knowledge that's in this book is beyond comprehension. This is kind of Bible for me, and I refer back to it so many times. This has so many great stories in it, and how people use the influence to their end. Try to read it. And but now my program wouldn't be complete if I do not recognize our supporters. And I will go with Mr. Sukhipal's name. He runs Popular Immigration, and his phone number is 647-296-4575. His office number is 905-790-8877. They are based off out of Brampton, and they provide one of the best service in immigration, work permits, and all those things immigration. And then Ravinder Duggi, she's a coach and a mentor as well. She is an author of a book. So if you want your organization to succeed, give her a call, 416-807-7986. Bhupendra Mane is a regional director of Cosmos Financial Center. They do business in insurance and investment solutions. Phone number is 647-448-6229. And Mr. Madan Chauhan, he is also a financial advisor, and he's a yoga teacher as well. So reach out to him at 6416, my apologies, 416-624-3210. Raminder Singh from Ottawa is a retired financial advisor, and he's also a former human rights activist, and he worked in this organization. So if you need any advice about those matters, call him 1-613-884-2361. Monisha Discount Warehouse is based out of Mississauga. They sell everything house related: bed sheets, mattresses, pants, suits, and they have very affordable rates on that. Even if you want something that you missed from Pakistan or India, their store is the best location to go to. 377 Burnham Thorpe Road East, and call Praveen Gupta. His phone number is 905-361-0773. And our two new supporters here, Mr. Brian Madigan. He is a Remax realtor and an expert witness. Call him for anything real estate or litigation to be safe. His phone number to reach is 647-404-8150. And also our friend from Perry Sound, broker owner of Remax, 705-746-9336. If you want to buy a property, cottage property, they are looking for more listing in the Perry Sound area. If you're watching this program for Perry Sound, Ontario, please give them a call. They Every agent in their office may have 10 or 20 clients looking to buy something in Perry Sound. So give them a shout out. With that, we are going to come back to our friend Brian Madigan. Brian, welcome back to the show. And here we are.
Yes. Okay.
So yeah, so so we have talked couple things, and I would like your take on one important thing that I know it's going on. Even if you tell the buyers they shouldn't go this route, the funny thing is buyers are asking us to do it. He says go unconditional because they're desperate to get into home ownership. And I suggest them, there is a form where we get them sign that this person will not be including a condition of this or that. I forgot the form number, 121 or 124, something like that. So they
127.
127. So they write down that the client is not going to include this condition of financing or insurance. Insurance usually never a condition. I don't know why, but certain cases may be. We'll come back to you on this. And then financing, home inspection, and all those things. But then there is something, there are dotted lines, and I like to write down this there, Brian. I tell them when they say they don't want finance condition, I put down there that appraisal of the property may be below the offered price. In that case, they will have to come up with additional cash and they understand the repercussion of doing so. If they are on the margin, their cash is all put into the set price on the offer, they may run the risk of not being able to close and lose their deposit. So I would like you to give your opinion on this.
Well, excuse me. I certainly think that that's very wise to put that in. Let's take the example that I used, where the property is worth $900,000. It comes
Yes,
on the market. Everyone believes that that's a fair price, but we have a high shooter who goes in at 1.2. They are secure. They do win. They're several $100,000 over anyone else.
yes,
Now the bank is going to do an appraisal, and they're going to say that property is worth $900,000.
yeah.
So our individual purchaser in the example will be short $300,000 in terms of
It's a lot
completing
of
that
money.
transaction. So in terms of that, discussion needs to take place before the offer goes in. Where are you going to get this extra $300,000? We think it would certainly appraise out at the 900, but hard pressed, maybe it goes to $1 million, but you're not going to have a $1.2 million appraisal that goes with it.
Yes,
And the banks will only lend on the basis of the appraisal, whatever that
yes,
happens to be. So whether their ratio happens to be in a particular transaction 95%,
yeah,
90%, 75%, 70%, 50%, whatever that ratio is going to
yeah,
be for the bank in terms of their policy and
yeah,
the application that's gone into them,
yeah,
that will be what they would view on the property. So if the property was worth 900,000 and it was an investor coming forward who needed to have 50% equity in the
yeah,
property,
yeah,
they would then conclude, well, we're only lending um, 450,000 on that
yeah,
property,
yeah,
and you have to come up with 450. Yes, but from the perspective of the purchase and this particular deal, not only do you have to come up with half of the appraised value, you have to come up with all the funds that you spent in addition to the appraised value. So that's another
Absolutely.
300,000. So that conversation, now that's something that has arisen time and
Yeah.
time again over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
That's just a constant error, constant mistake. And
Yes.
it's important to appreciate that if you have any kind of a condition in at all, that may exclude you. So what you should do is you do your inspection ahead of time. Make
Yeah.
sure that you have a home inspector have a look at it. Now,
Yes.
the advantage is that some sellers will go to the expense of having a home inspection undertaken
Yeah.
and make that available in order to
Yes.
eliminate that as a risk. But
Yes.
really, most people don't. And you can appreciate that if a person has a problem that they don't want people to know about,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, 20 bidders, two know that have figured out that there might be some kind of a problem,
Yeah.
but 18 of them are bidding without knowledge of that problem.
Yes.
Um, they're just going to
Absolutely.
sell it, and they're going to that buyer is going to be confronted with
Yeah.
a substantial problem going forward.
Yeah. So here is John Selinan's comment. He mentioned in the chat, he says, with the inflation running over 4%, the Bank of Canada will increase rates. Will this be more of a psychological influence than a real one? This is what he is asking. And then the pandemic has had a large influence in this market. I fear real estate has become the toilet paper of the pandemic. I need to understand this phrase. And it's good to hear that they use 127 for each and every offer, which is great. So
Yeah.
Bank of Canada, I know the inflation is touching close to 5%, 4.7 something is the inflation rate. And US is more than 7%. And they still say, oh, we can manage it. But without changing the rates, they have to crank the thing up. And then they, because this is simulating a great economy. High inflation, more money in the market, simulating great economy, then the bank has to pull the lever to the positive side to get more rates here. And I think, John, it will be a psychological influence and drive prices more because we are hearing that Bank of Canada will increase the rates before April 2022. And this is kind of time bomb ticking for many home buyers who are looking to buy. I know some people who actually paid off their high rate mortgages to secure low rate mortgages before that happens. And people are doing it and they are paying huge penalties to the private lender because private lending has increased many fold. In Brian's example of $900,000 house and being appraised for less than that, and even the buyer has paid $1.2 million, $3 million cash deficit here, some private lender will pick the deal. But hey, the interest rate is going to be 8% with 6% lending fees, 14%. I'm not saying private lending is bad. This comes to rescue many people, but the problem is payments. Payments are heavy, and one must understand it how this is going to pan out in the longer run. And I guess that psychological fear is going to trigger a price war more. Brian, yesterday we had an offer. I didn't submit an offer, but there's a property here on Madras Place in Brampton. It got 36 offers, and the seller didn't even go for the second round. They just picked up the highest offer, listed for 1.3 mils. I am just making a ballpark guess. It might have sold for 1.7. So let's see when the price gets discovered. I will come back on that. So what do you think with the, because if you want to have a take on John Selinan's comment or question, that will this be a psychological influence on the market?
Well, the interesting thing is the psychology of the market can change very significantly just with a slight increase or a belief that something is going in one direction or another.
Yeah.
Um, Going right back to the Land Speculation Tax Act in 1974, in and of itself, it
Mhm.
put a damper on the market. but it didn't collect any money. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the interesting thing. It didn't generate money, but it put a fear in the market, and all of a sudden, people backed out, and it cooled the market off. And so that might be something that people would do if there was a sudden increase in interest rates.
Yeah.
Whereas right at the moment, the situation seems to be with participating in a bidding war, and you say there were 36 people yesterday. What that means is we have 35 people who are disappointed. And that could very easily prompt them to buy another house on the street if it became available at the 1.7 range very, very quickly. So
Yeah.
if interest rates popped up a bit and we had reasonable numbers, 2 or 3 people participating in a bidding war, they would be far more cautious.
Yes. Well, I think bidding should stop. It is the time buyers have to be very proactive in telling their agent that they don't want to compete. They have to step back because eventually the market is going to lose some number of sales this year, as predicted by CREA. They are thinking that we will see 8.9% less sales this year, not because of market cooling down, but because the house is going beyond the affordability range of so many home buyers, which is so true. That's what's going to happen. And I don't know how this is going to uh, pan out. Is this going to hold there? Is the divide between rich and poor, or having influential houses versus those who want to upgrade, will widen, and how this is going to pan out? I'm not sure if you are aware of this organization called Generation Squeeze. It is part funded by CMHC, and Generation Squeeze recommended that the government should start applying a surtax on properties over 1 million up to 1.5 million dollars, to the tune of 0.5%. And then they should also increase that up to 1% for houses beyond 2%. And they say whatever money comes in, some $1 billion they estimated, should be put towards creating more housing opportunities for the people, so they can actually reduce the inequality. I'm not sure how this is going to pan out, but history has always shown this, that these kind of experiments don't work well. What you call socialism kind of experiments, they always fail. But let's see how it goes. But we are on the same page that the market is going to stay crazy for a little more time.
Yes, certainly. One of the real issues here is the lack of supply.
Yeah.
We have um, probably 100,000 people in the GTA who want to buy a house and they can't.
100,000. Yeah.
Um, and it's sort of or or more than that.
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate that nothing is available for them. What we need to do is be in a position to create new housing. There has to be spaces, and not everyone wants to live in a condominium
Yes.
on the 20th floor. That's arisen significantly with respect to COVID,
Yeah.
where people would find, well, I'm up and down, I'm waiting for the elevator, and it's taking me
Yeah.
hours here. This is
Yep.
crazy. And then you might have 1 or 2 elevators out of service in a larger building, and all of a sudden, um, people are trapped in their apartments. Now, the good thing is, I guess, with COVID is there were only relatively few people using the elevators in the first place. But
Hmm.
aside from that, there's a significant increase in the number of people who want space.
Yeah.
The downtown condominiums of 600 square feet are just not enough. They need to
Yeah.
get out. They want to have a backyard that encourages them to look for townhouses, semis, detached properties
Yeah.
further out. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
not quite so many in the city, and they're very expensive. So let's get out a little bit further. So the larger GTA area is where they're looking. You can also appreciate that as soon as you get out of town, so to speak, where you stop seeing industrial complexes and plazas and you
Yeah.
start to see farmland, we have to take that farmland and convert it all as quickly as possible into subdivisions.
Yeah.
The difficulty is it takes 5 years. Now, that is really a government related issue. There are
Yes.
not enough people in government to process it. This could be done very quickly. It could be
Yeah.
handled very quickly. We could construct buildings very quickly. Um, just over the internet, I was hearing that the in China they can create a large building within a month.
Wow.
And it's sort of like, okay, well, how did that happen? Well, you had everybody with a plan, and everybody knew exactly what they were to do, and it was completely repetitive, and they did it, and they got it in, done, finished, built.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what are we doing here? We'd still be planning in a month. Oh, gee. Oh, we've only sent out a reply to say we've received your application. So in the first month, Ontario will respond, whether it be the municipality or the province. They will only indicate that. There are not enough people working in conservation authorities to process the thing. So that what we have is a backlog, and people are waiting. Now, when I say waiting, I'm
Yeah.
talking about the developers. It's
Yeah.
taking them, if they bought a property today, they can't start selling anything on it for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, that's completely unreasonable. Let's
Yeah.
just get this done. Why can we not approve something and have it processed in 6 months? We look out to other areas, let's say Texas, they can do
Yeah.
it in 6 months. That's how long it takes them.
Yeah.
So let's aim to do it like they do it in Texas,
Yeah.
quickly. Well, that means that you're going to have to employ quite a number of additional people in municipalities with respect to the approval process, conservation authorities. You're going to have to deal with all these issues and deal with it quickly. And if it means hiring more people, then away we go.
Yeah.
We could do that. So we could easily convert the farmland into subdivisions, apartments, uh, townhouses
Yeah.
to assist everyone. Our
Yeah.
real situation here, in terms of the long run, is immigration.
Yeah.
Our present immigration is 350,000 people per year
It
into
was it
Canada.
was 400,000.
Oh, 400 now.
Yeah, which they completed last year.
Yes, but those people have not arrived.
Oh, they are here. The
Oh,
400,000 immigration has been completed. I don't know what's the
oh,
quota this time is. I will speak with the
okay.
immigration guy we bring on show. So
Oh,
we'll have
okay.
some
That would
new
be
number.
very interesting.
Yeah.
So I think the fundamental issue is that most people coming to Canada end up getting off the plane either in Vancouver or in at Pearson Airport here in Toronto, and it's sort of like, okay, well, where are they going to go? If we were in large measure, they're going to stay
Yeah.
close to those two areas. And so I think that in terms of, if you say 400,000, I would say
Mm.
easily 300,000 of those people are going to stay in the greater Toronto area and need to be housed. So
Yeah.
wherever it is that they go, they have to have a roof over their head.
Absolutely. Those
Uh,
are living expenses. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So we could create those opportunities for them, but we don't. We don't.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just
I hope government can heed something, but taxing based on price of the properties, I don't know how detrimental or great it would be in the future, because a common house these days is over $900,000. I have a small semi-detached home in Mississauga. It is close to $1 million. If I put it on market today, I may get $1.1 million on this house. But am
Yes.
I paying the taxes? I'm barely surviving, making my household run. Now another surtax because my house value is $1 million now. Will this be justified? Will this not? It will be a great point of discussion for many people. But I will just quickly share some numbers I got from RBC Economist. For 2021, Brian, they said 2021 home resales surpassed the previous record of 2020 by 21%. Something similar you said when you were talking. And demand supply conditions remain tight in December. They are still very, very tight. And home prices escalated further up to a record of 26.6% from a year ago. Income doesn't go that much, but houses they are going up. So inflation is under pressure to go upwards because of the home prices. And price gains exceed 30% year over year in large parts of BC, Ontario, and Atlantic Canada. Market heat, they guess, is unlikely to dissipate quickly through higher interest rates should alter the higher interest rate should alter market's course this later year. Let's see how it plays out, because I don't think increasing rates is going to change because there are so many people willing to buy, and people are already tested against the stress test. So people have a cushion to handle up to 5.25% rate increase. But maybe newer people will have some struggles. Those who bought the houses, they already have equity. Brian, last year in December 2020, the average house price in Brampton was 8 something. I shared this slide yesterday with my audience the day before. If you look at this slide, $838,000 was as of December uh, 2020. But now, as of that date, on 16th, the average price was $1.317 million. This is a huge increase, and there are little other neighborhood markets. If you see, 579 in Shelburne is now $955,000. Halton Hill has gone from 1.904 to 1.18, and the highest I guess is for King for 1.6 to $2 million. So this 400,000 or 300 or $200,000 increase is beyond people's price range. I don't know when they will be able to catch this market, but right now we are seeing very grim situation for deserving home buyers. I would say deserving. I'm going to use this word deserving because they are not investors. They need a roof over their head, but now people or private lenders who have money, they are houses and flipping them over a month or 2 months time period and netting more than $100,000 in profit at the cost of deserving home buyers. We are close to time. We are actually 3 minutes over, Brian, because your talk is
Okay.
so interesting, and I would really like to have you back on this show whenever your time permits. But I want to thank you for being here and enlightening the audience, whosoever watching, realtors or home buyers or home sellers, as this feed goes over to 7 or 8 channels. And thanks to John as well. He is kind of muted and cannot speak, but I would probably push him to get a microphone and a nice camera. So we want to see his beautiful face. Brian, you want to conclude any in your final comments?
No, I would say that certainly, John would be an excellent person to have on
Yeah,
because the expectation in terms of increase in values going forward,
yeah,
uh, uh, released by Remax Canada this year, just a couple of weeks ago, is the fact that the largest increase is expected to take place in the Muskoka area, where the rate would be about 20%,
yeah.
compared to Toronto, which is estimated to be about another 10. So John is so if people were looking to buy anything, getting something in the Muskoka area is advantageous.
Yeah.
The other thing, of course, is you need to have a local expert, and John certainly has been a local expert in that area for many, many years, and he's my go-to guy, absolutely in that environment.
Fabulous. And that's a great recommendation. And I do second that. There's no one better than John Selinan to help you buy a house in Muskoka. And he is very diligent. And moreover, if you're buying a property that is not reachable by road, he has a plane to give you a nice ride over the
Absolutely.
picturesque, beautiful Muskoka. See all the lakes, see all the beautiful colors in spring and autumn. You will totally enjoy and fall in love with it. And it's a free ride. But if you don't buy a house, he might drop you from the plane. So don't take him for a ride, but enjoy a ride with him because he will love to help you out. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. Uh, and you will love to come back because there is so many things people do not understand and they must be informed and educated. Now before I end up this stream, I would like to ask my question. If you give the reply within the next hour, you will get a $50 gift card from Paul Cheema, the mortgage broker with Akal Mortgage Inc. And the question is, what was the name of the book I showed during the telecast? The answer is right in the video. You can fast forward it, you can play it, but whosoever gives me the first correct reply will get $50 gift card. If you are overseas, I will email it to you. If you are local, I would love to meet up. Of course, with mask and 6 feet distance, but we would like to have a picture with you. So once again, what was the name of the book that was recommended during the show? With that, wish you good luck. Enjoy your day. Be safe out there. Don't park your cars on the road so snow blowers can do their job. Because if you don't, it's going to be very messy for many people. So respect snow plower guys, respect garbage pickup guys if they're around, and do not park your vehicles right in front of somebody's garbage bins that are kept on the curbside. It gives a hard time to people who are trying to earn their living by all means honesty. So respect people around you. Thank you very much, Brian. And Brian, can you share your phone one last time and how
Oh,
you want people to reach
yeah. So
you?
the phone number is 647 404 8150.
Very good. So once again, I will repeat his phone number 647-404, just like Highway 404. It's quite easy to remember. Highway 404, 8150. So 647 404, you only need to remember 8150. Wow, that's a great number, Brian. And John Selinan for Muskoka Properties, 705-746-9336. Sukhi Paul for Immigration, 905-790-8877. Ravinder Duggi, Coach, Mentor, 416-807-7986. Bhupendra Mane for insurance needs, 647-448-6229. Madan Chauhan, financial advisors, 416-624-3210. 3210. Raminder Singh, retired financial advisor from Ottawa, 1-613-884-2361. Monisha Discount Store for all things home. And yeah, your personal too. 905-361-0773. With that, wish you good luck. Enjoy your day. Stay happy, stay healthy, and keep your surroundings clean and make people around you smile all the time. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay.